Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we're moving on to public hearings. Public hearing A, to consider a Class 11 malt, spirituous, and vinous liquor license, victualer's license, and special amusement permit for music, dancing, and entertainment for Stillwater Brewing Company doing business at Bear Brew Pub, 36 Main Street. And just before Dave starts, as council remembers, we're trying something new, so we're putting the orders on the consent agenda, so we'll deal with them in a minute. Dave?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the council. My name is Dave Mylan. I'm the Economic Development Director, and I'm here to tell you that all inspections have been completed, tax and sewer fees have been paid, and the staff is recommending approval of the license.
Is there anyone here that wishes to speak for or against the issuing of this license? Hearing none, I will close public hearing A and move on to public hearing B, to consider a Class 11 restaurant, lounge, malt, spirituous, and vinous liquor license, special amusement permit for music, dancing, and entertainment, and victualer's license for Woodman's LLC, doing business as Woodman's Bar and Grill, 31 Main Street. Dave?
I'm still Dave Mylan, and all inspections have been completed, tax and sewer fees have been paid, and the staff is recommending approval.
Great. Anyone wish to speak for or against? Hearing none? I'll close public hearing B. Move on to public hearing C, to consider a lunch wagon license to Cutler LLC, doing business as the Stray Dog, 6 Mill Street. Dave?
Good evening. Just to make things more interesting,
Are you still Dave?
the staff has done the inspections of the licensing itself. Unfortunately, this is of his mobile trailer, and it's still up in Greenville, so he hasn't been able to bring it here. Bob hasn't been able to bring it here so that we can physically, so the code enforcement can physically inspect it. It's scheduled to be here in a week and a half. So what we're asking this evening is everything else is taken care of, but we'd like to have the council consider making it a conditional license, conditional that it not be used until we, that the license not be activated until we get the opportunity to inspect the vehicle.
And we'll take that up in new business.
Is this a time to ask questions?
Yeah, could I ask?
It's actually on new business. Can you guys wait till that?
Sure.
But it's a hearing.
We're going to do that on the consent agenda.
Not this one.
No, not this one. This one's pulled off.
Okay, all right.
Any member of public like to speak for or against this license? Hearing none, close public hearing C and move on to public hearing D, to consider a victualer's license for Susan Whitmore, doing business as SDW, 27 Park Street. Dave?
Good evening. All local inspections have been completed, and the staff is recommending license.
Okay. Anyone wish to speak for or against this license? Hearing none, close public hearing D and move on to public hearing E, to consider an ordinance amendment to the land use ordinance section 18-31 definitions and section 18-140 signs, defining and allowing the light pole signs in certain locations. Evan.
Yes, thank you. Evan Rickert, Town Planner. This is one of the first relatively small-scale amendments relating to implementation of various recommendations in the comprehensive plan, which was approved. This amendment would allow a form of signage known as light pole signs that would formalize the use of light pole signs within the street rights of ways as we currently do, but it's not really addressing the ordinance at this point. But beyond that, would also allow light pole signs on private property in addition to whatever other signage allowances there are on private property within a newly defined area called urban plazas. And the ordinance set standards for those signs in terms of how many can be had and the maximum area of the signage. The planning board conducted a hearing on this and made a recommendation to council, which was discussed also at your last council workshop. So they're recommended approval. And is before you tonight as a public hearing. You would take action next month.
Okay. Any member of the public wish to speak for or against this? Council will be discussing it next month, but does anyone have a question of Evan at this point? Nope. Hearing none, I will close public hearing E. Move on to public hearing F, to consider an ordinance amendment to the land use ordinance section 18-136, clustered development, concerning land area and sewer and water supply systems required in clustered developments.
This is another of the small-scale housekeeping amendments also called for in the comprehensive plan. The planning board did hold its hearing and discussion of it and made its report recommending adoption of these amendments. These amendments would address two goals. One was to provide for the opportunity for some small-scale clustering within our built-up area of town by reducing the required minimum threshold size of the land area from 5 acres to 3 acres. And secondly, to address potential cluster development in the Forest and Agriculture District, which is very different from the in-town areas, of course, by particularly allowing for on-site septic systems and wells as opposed to public sewer or so-called clustered underground subsurface wastewater disposal systems, as long as certain land areas within the lots that are consistent with the subsurface wastewater rules. So we recognize the realities and the possibilities in the Forest and Agriculture District, while also allowing for some additional opportunities in our in-town areas.
Great. Anyone have any questions regarding the public hearing? None? And council will take this up next month too. All right, I will close public hearing F and move on to acknowledgements by council members. Judy, do you have anything? Jeff?
Oh, wait a second, I forgot.
Yeah.
I wanted to, I think it's really neat that the jazz choral group, I guess is what it's called, both at the middle school and the high school level, which was new this year, did very well in their competitions in Orono. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
A lot of hard work, obviously, went into it by a few people.
Yeah. Jeff?
No, I'm good.
Tom?
Well, I wanted to acknowledge, one of the things that's in here today is people being appointed to all kinds of committees, and it is so nice to have so many people volunteer for these, and we got a full slate of people working elections and everything else, so I want to thank everybody for stepping up and volunteering.
Oh,
All set.
okay. Sam?
I'd like to echo Judy's acknowledgement of the Orono Middle School Show Choir that won the state championship, and also this year is the first year for Orono High School to have a show choir, and they came in second place, so it's fantastic. I'd also like to welcome Clint to the council, so I'm no longer the official new guy.
Good. Do you have anything?
You're okay.
All right. Well, I would just like to acknowledge Dave Mylan and his staff. You guys have been doing a lot with a lot of inspections and a lot of proactive work according to the reports that we receive. And so I just wanted to tell you that it's good work. Thank you very much. Moving on to unfinished business. I don't think we have any. So now we're on to the consent agenda. And the way this is going to work, unless counselors have something in particular they want to pull off the agenda, we will move it as a slate. So is there any orders on the consent agenda that counselors would like to review in new business? No, hearing none. I will take a motion to move the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? I'm sorry, Jeff and Judy, I didn't see. Okay. All right, passes unanimously. So, all right, now we're moving on to new business. And order 1659, order approving a lunch wagon license to Cutler LLC, doing business as the Stray Dog, 6 Mill Street. And I'll take a motion on that.
I move to approve the conditional.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
All right.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah.
Not that I want to get in the middle of having business.
No.
but I think we want to move it conditioned upon.
Okay.
Satisfactory inspection by the code office.
Okay. So,
So moved.
Agreed.
as the way Sophie said it. All right. Dave, I think council had a few questions for you.
I brought the licensee to answer those questions.
All right.
Hi, Bob Cutler, Cutler LLC, I guess in this case, straight off.
All right.
I'm just curious about, how this is going to operate. Where do you plan on locating yourself, hours of operations? I know last year, I believe this wagon was in Bangor.
Bangor for the summer, and then in the fall, it was operated at 6 Mill Street on the private property and at the Grove. And the hours fluctuated by event. So the same thing, this will predominantly be majority of the time at 6 Mill Street during hours of operation of the kitchen and the terrace.
So so it's just like a auxiliary room for your business? Is that-
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess that's a good way to look at it. It's, if the terrace does what we expect it to do, and we are, doing some really great events and everything else, we will need to offset the kitchen business, to ensure that, things are done quickly and efficiently and to the expectations that our residents expect. So, doing the truck on side of the terrace will also allow us to expand our menu, to do a few different things. So the Stray Dog will be able to stray away from our current menu and do some fun things.
So it will be located on the terrace?
On the terrace, yeah. When it went through planning board, we were allowed I believe it was 8 by 20 movable structure on the terrace, and this fits that area. It's definitely movable. It has wheels.
Cool.
Fits in that frame. We won't use the generator. We already ran the electricity, so it'll plug right in. There'll be no noise, no pollution. Just the truck.
Just,
Yeah, I had more of a procedural question, I guess, for Sophie. Is that I noticed on the application materials under personal property tax, on the license, it said not applicable. I'm just curious, how is that business property tax? Is that associated with the business?
So the reason it's not applicable is because it's not here and yet. It's not here in Orono, is my guess. I do not know how Rick picks that up, but I can assure you that it will be in some way valued and taxed.
Okay, I was
I'm
more
not
curious
sure
about
how
it.
it,
It said not applicable, and I didn't
I think it's
understand
not
that.
applicable because it would be what was assessed as of last year, because we have not assessed taxes this year.
Okay.
We also pay registration, excise, and everything else on it as a vehicle.
I was just thinking more about the cooking equipment and that,
Yeah,
would be
personal
in the
property
truck.
tax.
And
I filled out the paperwork and reported all the new purchases that I probably just got lumped in under the Cutler LLC family dog.
yeah, that makes sense. Anyone else have any other questions? All right. Thanks, Bob, very much. All right, we'll take a vote on the order as conditioned. All those in favor of the order? Passes unanimously. I lost track of the numbers. Order 1653, order appointing David Russell as alternate code enforcement officer and alternate, I'm sorry, back, that's the Atlantic. There we go.
You thought you were done.
I thought I was on the consent agenda and I lost it. There we go.
Need this?
1663?
1660.
60. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I get revoted. Okay, I got it. Apologize for that. Order 1660, order awarding a contract for pavement marking services to Lucas Striping LLC of Sydney in the amount of $20,656. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Great. Rob?
Good evening, Rob Pierce, the Public Works Director. On April 1st, we received 4 responses to the RFP for pavement marking services. The low bidder was Lucas Striping at $20,656. We've had Lucas Striping doing our work for the past 3 years now, so they've done a nice job. No issues with that. I will add that we did write in the contract this year that all the work was required to be finished by July 1st. And then liquidated damages would be assessed beyond that point if they weren't able to complete the work.
Great. Council have any questions of Rob?
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
I'll mention that the bid did meet our budget, under budget.
That's even better. Council have any questions?
Do you have experience with Lucas?
They've been our contractor for the last 3 years.
Did they do that last year, even though it was with the DOT work?
Yes. And that's one thing, they're very flexible. They worked with our construction schedule and was able to work in and get all our work done.
All right. Hearing no more discussion, I will take a vote on Order 1660. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to Order 1661, order approving the purchase of a plan scanner and printer from Canon Solutions America, Inc. in the amount of $7,357 to be funded from the Downtown and Transit-Oriented TIF District Fund, $2,607. Fire operating budget, $750. Police operating budget, $750. WPCF operating budget, $750. And Public Works Facility Fund, $2,500. Take a motion on that?
Move approval?
Second.
Dave?
As you can see, this is a piece of equipment that will be used by many different departments. I did make a deal with Rob that he helped me pay for it. We'd do all of the scanning and printing for him, so it was a win-win situation there. Again, we talked a lot about this in committee, so I'll stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
It's like my office, I'm not allowed to touch it. That's the deal it's made. Anyone have any questions?
Do you have any idea what kind of personnel resources we're going to use in putting our hard copy collection in a digital format, scanning them all and putting them all? Is that going to be a 3-month job or?
So we don't know necessarily how long it will take. What we know is that we have an intern coming back, a manager's intern coming back this summer. He'll be here in May. Tom Lucy worked for us last year and he's back from Bowdoin for another year. We plan to make this a central piece of his work. Not all of it, because it would get kind of monotonous to just scan maps, but a significant piece so that by the time he leaves in August, we will have made a significant dent in the maps. Our hope is that will clear up what is now in the map room, which right now is really a lot of wasted space and we can't utilize it well.
Okay. And can we get a report on that maybe at the end of the summer then, where we stand with that?
Absolutely.
I just going over what we have and then looking at working with Tom as to how it's going to take. I'm only figuring on between a half a day to a day a week that we would have dedicated to this, then you'd be dedicated to other things, simply because, as Sophie said, I didn't want to burn them out just scanning papers all day long.
Yeah, well, I know.
But I
We have
really-
other things in mind for him too, I'm sure.
But I believe that, I have real confidence that he can have all of those completed by then.
Okay.
That's my expectation.
And Dave, then we're going to have an indexing system?
Correct. It'll be, the files, all of these files will be, electronically kept, so that we'll be able to, call them up, anytime that they're needed.
Won't be direct public access to that index?
Correct, just through staff.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will take a vote on Order 1661. All those in favor? Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Order 1662, order approving a contract zone request by Star Properties LLC to change the shoreland zoning of the property located at 5 College Avenue, tax map 19-4, lot 66, from limited commercial to general development, to allow for the placement of a gazebo pavilion to within 40 feet of the high water mark of the Stillwater River. Take a motion, please.
Move approval?
Second, please.
No, second.
Evan.
Yes, Evan Rickert, town planner. This is the final step in the rezoning process. It started several months ago. Went through planning board, hearing, notification of neighbors, committee discussion, and council hearing. And it would simply allow within the shoreline area the University Inn to have an accessory structure for weddings and similar events located in a logical place along on its property, which happens to be about 40 feet away from Stillwater River. Because of the state mandated shoreline zoning, there's one zoning district in which you could be that close, and that's the district to which we are providing this rezoning. It would be limited to this structure, so otherwise the status quo would remain in place.
Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none, I'll move to the vote. All those in favor of Order 1662? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Order 1663, order adopting amendments to the 2009 addendum to the Town Comprehensive Plan regarding the low-density residential district. This district encompasses a section of Orono along Stillwater River and west along Forest Avenue, about 1.5 miles from I-95. We'll take a motion, please.
So moved.
And could I have a second, please?
Second.
All right. Evan.
If this is the final step in the amending of this particular part of the comprehensive plan, this is not an ordinance, this is the comprehensive plan, so it provides guidance for future ordinance considerations, which will go through its own process. But you will recall, and I'm just going to summarize here because there was a public hearing last month, which you received comments from a number of folks, and a presentation by Chair Phil Ruck, Planning Board Chair, Comprehensive Plan Chair Phil Ruck, and myself. But in summary, the committee recommended, and the language of this amendment would continue to recognize the low-density residential district as a hybrid zoning district that allows for both rural land uses, including rural production uses and residential uses. Recognize that there are sometimes some conflicts between those things, and it recommends some strength in review and performance standard procedures to try to allow those things to coexist. It would keep the boundaries of the low-density residential district as it is. One of the tools for trying to assure that the spillover effects of some land uses are not so adverse as to be problematical for others is that you would reinstate in ordinance a tool that the town used to have, but hasn't had for a while, called conditional uses, in which the presumption is the proposed use is allowed, and in ordinary cases it would, but there may be some conditions that would be necessary to assure coexistence between this use and other uses allowed in the district. And so there would be some strengthened performance standards for the mineral extraction use that would be continued to be recognized as an allowed use under the conditional use tool. Finally, this amendment would allow the mobile homes, individual mobile homes that are allowed elsewhere in the 4th Agriculture District to also be allowed east of I-95, where presently they are not. So that's a quick summary of the changes proposed.
What you said was that this is just amending the comprehensive plan, right?
Correct.
This isn't an order though.
No, well, it's an order to amend the comprehensive plan.
I'm just curious about, does this like authenticate that it's okay to do mineral extraction and those kind of things in that area? Still have to create ordinances, that's what I want.
Yeah, it's just a plan to further.
I had one question for Evan. On the schedule of uses, Evan, I see the home occupation is still listed as having site plan review. And I thought we were,
Home occupations?
on the table of uses.
Yes,
home
that will
occupation.
change. I mean, there's an interplay here between what was the addendum to the comprehensive plan, this area,
Okay.
deal with that. If the town, if you all adopted changes to the home occupation regulations that we've
Then we'll
begun
see
to
that.
discuss, this will then
Okay.
change too.
Okay.
One of the things that I wondered about is when we talk about the mineral extraction and the excavation, removal, and filling of land, and I brought this up before, we talk about how much can be removed from a site, but we don't talk about how much can be brought in. And just seeing what's happened in my neighborhood, I can see that as being an issue, and I understand when it's mentioned as one of the activities, filling, we yet don't have a restriction on how much fill can be brought in.
Yeah, I think under the ordinance, the way the code enforcement officer probably would interpret the existing standards around filling, land being brought in, that if it's moving more than X cubic yards of material, either away from or into a site, then once at a certain point it's just allowed. At a certain point beyond that, it requires a permit from the code enforcement officer, and at a certain level beyond that, it has to come in for site plan review by the planning board to look at sedimentation, erosion control, stormwater, and that sort of thing.
So is there someplace else in the not in the things that we're looking at, but someplace in our ordinance that specifically talks about how much can be brought in?
Yeah, yes, under the performance standards dealing with earth moving, removal, and filling, that general thing, there was a performance standards section dealing with that, and that specifies those standards, those levels, those thresholds.
I keep reading about 100 cubic yards coming in, going out, but I don't read
I
anything.
think it would still be, if you're moving that much material from one place to another place, even if it was coming from off-site into the site, for the purpose of filling activity, that, I think that would trigger. We should look at that, Counselor, just to make sure, because you raised a good point.
Thank you.
That's always been my assumption.
Thank you.
Council have any other questions or comments? Dan, this isn't a public hearing, but I'll take your comment if it's quick.
Thank you very much, because you know my property is a consideration of this a great deal. If you talk percentages, 1,500 acres, we have 400 about. Although the commercial acreage is only about 100, and that's the site. I'd like to talk about what's happening here is a great deal of difficulty. We have never been asked, Nobody's bought, nobody paid for anything. This is a right that has been taken away from us and is in process. And the process has to do with a partnership, which is between public, it's the government, representative, this body, the private corporations, non-governmental, a housing association, and a business association in the downtown Orono. None of them have anything to do. They are not stakeholders except for profit.
Okay.
And we need
Dan,
to talk about
this
that.
is, we,
This is a very serious issue. You're stealing from us our rights to our property, our happiness. There is nothing in place that says that you will recognize the court order which was placed upon you for grandfathering and our rights. You have multi-layered these.
Dan, this
arbitrarily.
is just an order to move discussions further on the ordinances. This is not taking up mineral extraction today. It's just talking about something in the future that is something that we would discuss.
I'm sorry, but this is the process that needs to be looked at with a microscope. Seriously, the issue that's happening here is our property rights are being taken, not paid for, decided by other entities, a partnership, if you will, that's out for its own
Okay,
profit.
Dan,
At the end of it, the housing association...
We've heard this before. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. The housing association and the non-governmental
Dan, I'm going to ask you to sit down
organizations-
now. This is not a public
Yes,
meeting.
I will,
Public
but
hearing.
they take and they profit by this ordinance and by moving this ahead. And your lack of considering is very troubling.
Thank you, Dan. Any other comments from council? Right, hearing none, I will take a vote on Order 1663. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to Order 1664, and this order is based upon a motion that came out of the Operations Committee, and so I'm going to read the whole thing. I think it's important to read. So, order authorizing the execution of the municipal joinder agreement with the Municipal Review Committee resolved by the Town Council on Orono, Maine, that the Town of Orono shall continue as a member of the Municipal Review Committee, Inc., MRC, organized as a Maine nonprofit corporation and acting as a regional association pursuant to Title 13B and Title 38 of the Maine Revised Statutes as amended, and specifically Section 1304B5A of the Title 38, for the purposes of managing and facilitating solid waste disposal. 2. The Town of Orono hereby adopts, ratifies, and confirms the restated Articles of Incorporation and the restated bylaws of the MRC in substantially the form on file with the Town Clerk and attached to this resolution. 3. The Town of Orono hereby is authorized to execute and deliver a municipal joinder agreement with the MRC in substantially the form on file with the Town Clerk and attached to this resolution, the municipal joinder agreement, pursuant to which the Town of Orono will be a joining member of the MRC as defined therein, and deliver its municipal solid waste for disposal to a waste management facility being developed by Fiberite LLC and/or its affiliates, collectively Fiberite, in Hamden, Maine, or other waste disposal facility. And 4, the Town of Orono hereby authorizes the MRC to take actions on behalf of the Town of Orono as set forth in the municipal joinder agreement. Now therefore, it hereby voted and ordered by the Town Council of Orono, Sophia L. Wilson or her designee or designees is authorized as a representative of the Town of Orono to execute and deliver the municipal joinder agreement on behalf of the Town of Orono, and to execute and deliver on behalf of the Town of Orono in conjunction therewith such other documents, and to take such further actions as they may deem necessary or appropriate in order to effect the transactions contemplated by the municipal joinder agreement. I will take a motion on that.
So moved.
I have a second, please. Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Great. Before Rob speaks, I'd just like to make a statement that before council came to this motion, we had much public, Over the past 6 months, council has had the opportunities, along with the public, to attend presentations on various trash alternatives. Council has also reached out to the Mitchell Center for Sustainability to get answers to council's questions. Council then had 2 public discussions reviewing hundreds of pages of documentation. Staff has been very helpful crunching numbers and pulling together data so that council could review all alternatives as they specifically pertain to Orono. So after 5 public meetings or presentations on this matter, the council now sits poised to make a decision. With that background, I will open it to Rob to give a brief discussion.
I don't know what I can add to that. Rob Yerkson, Public Works Director. As Cindy said, we've been talking about this at the committee level for quite some time now. But just as for a matter of background, I'll just give a few bits of information to help support your decision tonight. As you all know, at the end of March of 2018, our current agreement for MSW with PERC will expire. Knowing this, the MRC, the Municipal Review Committee, has been working for years to prepare for this expiration of the contract, to give communities an opportunity to make good decisions about how they handle their mixed solid waste. Going forward, there have been 2 proposals, one from PERC and one from the MRC, as potential solutions to this issue post-2018. I've taken a little bit of time to take a close look at what the operations, how each of these agreements would affect the operations of the town, and essentially what the impact to our operating budget would be. Looking at the MRC and Fiberite partnership contract, as well as the proposed PERC solution, it became clear that the MRC and Fiberite solution would be the most economical solution for the town, both initially and moving forward. Primary highlights of what makes that solution, I think, the best is that we'll always have a place that we can take our recycling, mixed solid waste, and ultimately our organics, which could become a regulated portion of the stream in the future, depending on how the state legislation works. Going forward, that could become a part of the stream that we have to isolate. The Fiberite solution gives us a solution processing those organics without having to necessarily separate them either post-collection or at the source. But I guess initially, just looking at the first year, we talked about this at our committee meeting. The Fiberite solution with the $35 tipping fee for zero sort recycling would look at about an increase of about $8,000 to $10,000 in the operating costs. The PERC solution would be about a $35,000 increase, and that's in year 1. That is for just our curbside collection, which represents about 1,150 ton of our total 4,000 ton waste stream. The cost to businesses for what is about 2,000 ton would also increase because of the way our ordinances work. They'd be required to follow suit with whatever decision you all make. So I think, I think that's pretty much the backbone of where I ended up coming to the decision-making process, is that I think that the fiber-right process provides us with a lot more flexibility going forward, and ultimately it's the most economic decision for the budget.
Well, when you say you think it provides more flexibility or more opportunities, I think one of the things that I read that I was concerned about was, I would have interpreted it differently. I would have said the fact that they do not, we cannot institute, and no one joining the program can institute a program they don't already have in place prior to joining. And that one of the things that they're concerned about is they want our organics. And so they
Right,
really don't want to
process.
see us do anything with organics outside of the stream. And that kind of, that personally bothers me a little bit. So how is it more flexible? If that's one of the things it can't do.
Well, I guess when I use the word flexible, I mean they can accept a wider range of material, a wider range of product. As far as the contract goes and those kinds of things, I didn't get too far into that, Sophie knows that part of it, but I guess what I was looking at is they provide us a solution for our entire waste stream, whether it be the organics, the recycling, or the mixed solid waste. They can process all that. If we go with the PERC solution, we'll need to go out on our own, and especially initially, to find a place for our single sort recycling.
What are they doing with it now?
Right now, we have a contract with Casella.
And, okay, so we continue
And
that.
that cost, right now, we have, as we talked about in the committee, but right now, we have an agreement for collection. They don't charge us a tipping fee for those materials collected. Post 2018, we're being told that they will. And there are many communities that currently do pay a tipping fee because the market has been, for recycled materials, has gone down.
Doesn't the fiber
So
right?
what the fiber-right solution caps the tipping fee at half of the MSW tipping fee. So initially that'd be $35 a ton. What we've gotten for quotes from Casella would be around $55 a ton on its own. So we'd be paying $20 a ton to have our recycled materials processed initially, on top of having to pay more for our mixed solid waste.
I have editorial comments, but not now. Not now.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Well, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I was, had gone over this and many times, and I wrote down a few things, and I came in and I saw this letter that was presented to us, or I guess it's a summary of the proposals or whatever. And I was pleased to see that many of my concerns were here, so I didn't feel like I was flying off in left field. Because I do have some concerns about for the life of me, I don't understand how an organization that will be carrying such a debt is able to, and we haven't seen any pro formas from them. They talk about what they're going to do with all the stuff that comes in, how they're going to make money from all the stuff that comes in, but yet I'm not seeing anything substantial that I would say with confidence that this is going to work. So it's new. It hasn't worked anywhere in the country. There were comparisons made to the European, and that raised a question for me, because one of the things with the European models that use a similar process, they are able to use the spent material on their land and spread it on their land and use it as I'm assuming it's a form of compost. We can't do that here. Our rules are such that because it's somewhat contaminated, we won't be able to do that. And I was kind of curious, does anybody know what's going to happen with that stuff once it becomes spent? If it's used to create gas, then what happens?
Goes to the
The MRC's done a lot of work on that.
So I can answer your questions, Judy. And just by way of disclosure, I serve on the MRC Board of Directors. You nominated me and elected me to that board. The MRC spent 2.5 years asking many of those very same questions. As you understand, as elected officials who sometimes have to meet in executive session and see material that not everybody else can see, and then ask people to take some amount of trust that you have verified pro formas. That's where we're at with the fiber right pro forma. It has not been, they have not lifted the confidentiality document promise that we had signed. In terms of the question of what happens to the material comes into the plant. It either comes in truly as recycled material, so a sorted collection, as sorted as you want to get, or as single stream like we do, in one area. Mixed solid waste comes into another area. It is cleaned repeatedly, picked through with optic and manual labor to get as much of the recycled material out as possible. What is left goes into a pulper. That pulper beats everything up, and it goes through a series of conveyors to once again kind of get picked through a little bit. When it goes into the digester, there are enzymes that are added to it that allows it to process both soluble and insoluble organics. A piece of what comes out is a solid biofuel where the enzymes come together. That biofuel is actually used in the boiler in the plant to heat for its own heat. And what cannot be processed in that manner is landfill. That's what the Norwich Crossroads landfill contract that backs this contract up is for. And the estimate is, conservative estimate is that we would be able to recycle and utilize, so get a higher and best use out of approximately 80% of the waste stream, and about 20% would end up being landfill. I think I answered your questions that you asked.
What about the issue with the biogas right now? I mean, there have been 2 closures of biogas plants in the state of Maine because currently, with the low price of natural gas, it's just not a viable, obviously, evidently a viable product. So I understand that they're talking about biogas. They're also talking about cellulose or sugar products. You know, I guess the fact that for me, sometimes I wish I'd rather see them light on and say this is what we're going to do than to say, well, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, because it's like a moving target. You know, I don't wonder how, because I mean, if you look at one of the things that Mr. Duchesne pointed out was there appears to be a $2 million, and I think Mark Haggerty at one time asked the same question. There appears to be a gap in terms of income and outgo. How is that going to be made up? And you know, all these different choices, how viable are any of them?
So to try to answer your questions as we answered in committee.
Well, I think it's important for these questions to be, because this is an opportunity for the public to hear.
That's perfectly fine, but I just wanted to make sure people understood that we've gone through this, and so it's not just a flyover. And I'm not sure I got them all, Judy, because you listed quite a few.
I know.
So you can ask again.
I will.
I think I'll start at the back and work to the front. As we talked about in committee, there are those individuals who would prefer not to see the fiber right project work, who have floated that question about in your DEP permit, fiber right lists, I want to say $12 million of expenses, and when you multiply 70 times 150 tons, which is the tip fee times the minimum number of tons that we're looking for, it only comes up to 10 million and some change. So the answer to that is really simple. Much like our site plan review process here, an applicant who's looking for permits at the state for a project like this must be able to demonstrate that they have financial ability to make the project work. And the way that you do that is you highlight your worst case scenario. In this case, the expense number that you're looking at is based on 230 tons of material going through the plant. 230 tons of material times the tip fee leaves a significant amount of revenue on the table to operate. So that's the answer to that question. The second one was about lighting on a particular, is it biofuel, is it cellulose? When we first started this process, we were looking at industrial sugars. This process allows the operator to make very quick decisions and do one or do the other, biogas or industrial sugars. We actually liked that flexibility. We are lighting on the biogas to start simply because in talking with Bangor Natural Gas, they have an interest in buying it. The pipeline goes right under the property where this will be located, so it is a known revenue source, a known buyer for this. And Bangor, my understanding is that Bangor Natural Gas is in conversation with individuals that are looking for that mix of gas in the pipeline. So the fact is, yes, it can be either or, and MRC actually saw that as a benefit.
The gas, though, doesn't it has to meet certain levels to be acceptable, is that correct?
It has been tested. It has been tested because, this process is not, there is a plant, a smaller plant, but of this exact, it is a duplicate of what they plan to put here, that is operating in Maryland. And the gas has been tested. It meets the parameters. So, I don't.
Is there any impact with the decision by the county that the towns that they represent are not going to be going with Merck? Does that impact all of these forecasts?
Impact it? No. Right at this point in time, MRC communities, of which Penobscot County and the towns they represent are the unorganized territories within Penobscot County. Had the entire tonnage for the MRC communities was in excess of 180 tons. So losing some, we wish, you don't want to lose any, because the more trash you have, the better your bargaining and buying power is long term. But to lose a few hundred tons now from the county, we have about 30 ton to give. Plus we're picking up organizations that are not currently part of MRC. So it's an individual choice.
I just wondered if it was a significant tonnage that was going to be gone. Doesn't sound like it would be.
Sophie, I had a question. We're saying that we adopt and ratify and confirm the restated Articles of Incorporation and bylaws. Is there any major changes? Our voting rights are still the same?
Actually, you get more.
That's even better.
In putting the bylaws together, what we were looking for was a bigger check to the balance of the powers. Right now, the MRC Board of Directors has pretty large array of powers to decide what they want to do. The new bylaws actually creates matters of significance, and it's not the word they used in the bylaws, but essentially if it is a matter that has to do with the contract, a significant element of the contract, spending more than $100,000, and there's one other element, much like, I won't say, but perhaps a member looked at the Orono charter and took some of the things out of that and tried to mirror it, so that essentially you can call a meeting and call for a referendum vote.
Of the members.
So, so actually you end up with all that you had before and a little bit more.
Good. Anyone else have any comments?
Could you comment on the question of if the state sees fit to require municipalities to take some kind of particular action regarding to their solid waste, and it's something that we're not allowed to do under our contract, how is that resolved? Or how would it be resolved, or can you conjecture how it might be resolved?
That'd be a
So if I
second.
was gonna conjecture, I would say that there is a law on the books that says that towns must provide solid waste disposal for their communities. You don't necessarily have to pay for every penny of it, you don't have to necessarily have a trash disposal, a curbside collection, but you must ensure that residents have a place to take their trash. And there are a few towns in the state of Maine that don't do that. There is no trash police that comes along. So that's the first thing I would say as I create my conjecture. Second thing I would say is that already in Augusta, there have been discussions about the fact that the way they were looking at organics management prior to Fiber Rights Project coming to the forefront is not indicative of the way they would likely regulate organics management moving forward. Before they talked pretty much exclusively about composting. And now they're making it very clear that this is managed, it is about managing your organics. And the discussions that we've had with legislators and with the committee and DEP make MRC very comfortable with the idea that if organics processing comes into play, that what Fiber Right is proposing will be an acceptable organics management program.
Sounding not the best use, but.
Anyone else have any questions?
I
or
do have one
comments?
more question about the money. Right now, the MRC is holding around $25 million or so that is accumulated through rebates or whatever from the PERC relationship over the years. What was the intent of that money? Was it ever intended that some of that money would come back to the towns, the participants, or was it always going to be held, as a war chest, or just in case the sky falls chest, or what was the purpose of that money, and what is the likelihood that it would ever be redistributed, any of it, back to the towns?
I would say every quarter we get some of it back to the towns. I mean, as MRC has distributed millions and millions back to the towns, in excess of 60 million. Again, you asked a compound question, so I'm going to try to take it piece by piece, okay? The first question is that MRC does in fact hold approximately $25 million of municipal money. MRC has no assets, so everything that MRC is working with belongs to the towns. That money came in two ways. One, through management of our partnership agreement. MRC worked with Bangor, what was then Bangor Hydro, which is now Emera. It is a very long, convoluted story, but at the end of the day, the town's got about $19 million of cash, which when MRC began, that was never anticipated. It was never anticipated. MRC's mission is to ensure long-term, affordable, environmentally sound disposal of municipal solid waste. The thought moving forward is that we need to keep enough money in reserve to ensure that we can meet the mission. However, the intent is to give as much of that money back as we can. As I've said in committee, this is not a perfect option. There is no perfect option on the table. And what the MRC has tried to do when they put this option on the table was to create as much contingency planning as possible so that if things didn't work out, which we don't believe it's not going to work, but if it doesn't, then we have adequate resources. What we're planning to do with that 25 million, of which about 600,000 of that belongs to the town of Orono, is to take 5 million. Once we have 150,000 tons committed, we would take $5 million, buy the land, and put in the roads and the public infrastructure that then goes to the town of Hamden, but to support this facility. We will take about $1 million and set it aside just for transportation issues, so that if we end up having to transport to Norwich Walk, we would have the ability to transfer our waste out of the Hampton facility, so we're not having to drive our trash to Norwich Walk. So that's a part of what that money would be helped set aside for. There is a sufficiency reserve fund of about $3 million set aside. That is in case we drop below, as a collective, below the 150,000 tons, we would have the ability to pay that penalty to Fiber Right and not come back to the individual towns. There's money set aside for, in order to ensure that we could get rid of Fiber Right off the premise if it didn't work. Since they are building the building and putting everything inside the building, we had to come up with a way to be able, if we terminated the contract, to be able to get the building back from them so we could put something different in that. It's about, what we've agreed to is $7 million, which would be depreciated over the life of the contract, so 15 years. So every year, money will get returned. That money will immediately go back to the towns in the formula of which it was our percentage of the total amount. There is money set aside for rebates so that we can continue to have a steady amount of return, much like we do right now, where we pay $76 at the gate and we get back enough money to target value, which is $59 right now. So there's we've created these pools of reserves that are designed to minimize our risk. What it says in your materials is that you would be agreeing to let MRC hold that for 3 years, at which time we would undertake a public discussion about what level of reserves is necessary. It would be based on what kind of returns we're seeing from the Fiber Right plant, whether or not it looks like we need transportation, back. So the idea is to have enough money, but not overlaps. And I think part of the reason that if people have been paying attention to what decisions MRC has been making for the past 10 years, it has been about needing significant money on hand so that when we hit this crossroads, we had the reserves necessary to be able to ensure that the mission is met post-2018.
But if you add the investment that we're going to be making into the plant and all those facilities, and that $70 a ton tipping fee really is quite different.
So in terms of the investment that we don't get back or that we don't maintain control over, it's $2.21 a ton at 150,000 tons.
And what level do we have to go before we get any kind of, I know at this point it's 180 tons or more that there is a rebate that does kick in.
Rebates kick in at 180,000 tons or more on the tip fee side. And I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's $5.7 million or more in revenues generated from the sale of commodities, whether it be what they make or sale of recyclables. And it's 30% of the revenue.
Any other questions or comments from councilors? Everybody's comfortable? All right. All right, we will take a vote on Order 1664. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, it's a 6-1 vote, passes. Moving on to future agenda items and items of concern. We'll start with Clint. Do you have any items of concern at this point? You're the new guy, is what you're supposed to say.
I'm the new guy.
Sam, Tom.
Just one thing, I haven't been here for a while, so this may have been discussed already. As we get into our budget development process, could we have one more time with our finance director going over our current year finances so we have a clear view of where we're projected to end up at the end of the year? I noticed from the material that was in this packet, there are a number of lines that we've spent more than we anticipated, and there are a number that we haven't spent as much as we anticipated, so it'd be nice to kind of have a sense for where we think we're going to end up.
Yeah, I think I'll try to bring him in. Yes, the answer is yes. I'm not sure when, but we'll make it happen.
Judy, you have anything?
I asked Echo.
Yeah, you
It's the
do.
first I've ever heard it. I've already asked, I just mentioned it to Sophie, and just to get a calendar that we usually have for the budget period of time.
Okay. Jeff?
That was my only request as well.
All right.
Was a calendar for the budget meetings.
Tom?
I'm good.
All right. Moving on to public petitions. I don't think we have any. Public comments? Dan?
Dan LaPointe, 201 Kelly Road. I'd ask you to take a look at this website. Websites being what they are, I think this is fairly legitimate. Womensgroup.org. Please take a look at that.
Is that again?
Womensgroup.org. I think what the lady speaks about and what she speaks to is very clear and succinct. Again, I go back again to this word partnerships between the government, your representation of us as the public. You're our servants. You're not to order us how to behave. You cannot and should not choose a land trust, an association, a business entity, a corporation of any kind to have the benefit over somebody else in the community. For you to take property and devalue it, and take the value out without justification, it's not just me that you're affecting. You might not like me, I might not look good enough, I don't know. But you're taking it from future generations within this community forever and for perpetuity. It's a very serious issue. And when you form those kind of partnerships, and you have beneficiaries, in part because they're players at the decision point, that violates the Hatch Act and the Hayes Act. Again, perpetuity is the issue here. One of the things that came and really bothered me when we were in the decisions for the quarry, I actually had a viable offer to continue the quarry. One of the things I was going to get $1 a yard. Now, we all know it's $18 a yard, maybe profit, it's $10, $14 a yard, who knows, after equipment cost and whatever else. Would have been a great asset here with the Thorntons. I actually this was viable. If I had agreed out of my dollar to donate 25 cents to the town, if I had agreed to donate 35 cents to the land trust, it would go through. Now, the thing that happens with this is I asked the vendor and I said, look, I don't care if you honor those requests and if you feel they're valid, if you consider that a cost of business. I cannot allow our stumpage, our rights of income, our court case decision for grandfathering to be so challenged by this permitting process. I think this was a great stumbling block on parts of it. Seriously. Now, other rhetoric and stuff is now in or being considered in our comprehensive plan. I think this is significant, this partnership that makes these decisions, that bring this to the table without our influence. The problem that I see is that it's replicated not just here, but all across the country. The very same process, which is designed to create an overbearance and take away from us our rights and our values for our property, not just for today, but for perpetuity. It takes from our children their rights. It creates in areas within the community places that will be impoverished and other places that will be enriched. These set-asides for the land trust have ratcheted up with this combination. Our taxes beyond measure. When I hear the amount of monies being talked about here, and I compare it back in the past when the dollar was worth more, it's astounding to me that this is becoming every day and considered and not looked at, not stepped back and not looked at. Again, review what this woman has said or this presentation on womensgroup.org. I think it will resonate what I'm saying to you. Because the end result is a form of treason. You're taking away our rights.
All right, Dan, I think we got your point very much. Thank you for your comments. All right, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We have lots to sign, Nancy says.
Next Monday, committee?
It's a holiday.
No committee meeting next week?
No
I'm not going to be there Friday. I'm going to be there tomorrow. You're going to be there tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that late.
15, yeah.
But I won't be there Friday because I'm going to Vermont to see my two best friends.
Great.
So I just wanted to know.
Lori will be back.
You got to have a Kingsley Square promise.
Yes,
We're done this week.
we're done this week. You're done this week. You're done this week. I still have the rest of the week to go.
I have my own party up on